Eric, thank you so much for joining us today. Our audience has heard a lot about you already. We are so thankful to have you. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about you and Kate, your Enneagram types, evolved marriage. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, Krista. Yeah, super excited for this conversation. So Enneagram type, Kate and I am a four type. Uh, I lean towards an eight at times as well. So those were kind of like my two main ones.
Mm-hmm.
And Kate is a three and sometimes leans into a nine. So those were like the two ones that really stood out for her. And so,
Wonderful.
yeah, I think when we did the assessment and kind of went through it and started diving deep, it really spoke to, for me at least, these two parts of my personality,
Mm-hmm.
which are, emotional, wear my heart on my sleeve, be open, but also, kind of be direct, be a little bit challenging. Kate
Mm-hmm.
often says that I'm kind of the tip of the spear sometimes, and I
Yeah.
just plow through stuff. And so it was really good. Kate, when we did hers and we were kind of like talking about how they play together, she was a three with a nine. And again,
Mhm.
she was like, yeah, this is totally me. And what a lot of listeners typically do when they do their quiz, you start looking for examples of where this all shows up. It's like, yeah, there's an example of how I do this, how I do that. And so
Mhm.
it was really cool. It affirmed a lot of the thoughts that we have, but also it championed a lot of the things that maybe we didn't like about us all that much. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I think it really allowed me to be like, oh, actually, there's some good qualities to this thing that I thought wasn't really great about me. And so it really brought
Yeah.
up a lot of positivity and optimism and allowed me to really accept myself a bit more.
Oh my goodness, that blesses me to hear that. I know I think fours are more insightful than any other type. I was just reading a book about that last night, and it was actually a murder mystery involving Enneagram types. And I was like, what is this? I got sent this book, and one of the characters was a four, and it was just this beautiful reminder of something I already knew, which is that fours are truly the most understanding of themselves, but they can be, like you hinted at, the most self-deprecating in that way because they're so aware of their flaws and sometimes even imagining they have a fatal flaw. And so just hearing there's a lot of really beautiful, wonderful things about being a four and an eight probably really made you feel thankful, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as you're saying it there, you kind of nailed them. I'm self-critical sometimes. I'm aware of, I always got to do better.
Yeah,
And I
right.
think that's the eight and the four playing together. But yeah, I think it really just we had a lot of fun with it. It was really
Yes,
playful. We were laughing
so
about it.
fun.
And it was
Yeah.
wild how it just kind of hit us between the eyes. It totally nailed us.
Yeah. And you have used that goal getting, like, I need to be better to build an incredibly large marriage ministry. For those who don't know about it and outreach, I would say, what would you tell everybody evolved marriage is like? We were talking about your fun Zoom calls, but tell people a little bit about that. Many of them already know, of course.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. So, Evolve Marriage is something Kate and I, my wife and I, put together. Little bit of background, I would say about 7 years ago, we had two young kids. I was a way overachiever in the hotel and restaurant industry. That the
Mhm.
plan was to be incredibly successful. Like I had this blueprint for life. If it only I could make it there, right? All my
Yeah.
life's problems would go away.
Right.
Sadly, that wasn't the case. Kate was at home, raising two young kids and felt really disconnected. And our marriage kind of got to this boiling point, this bottleneck of like, this is not working for me, right? And
Mhm.
and for me, I think felt a lot of insecurity that I wasn't talking about, felt a lot of shame of like, I don't get it. Like, we have this life, we have the big house, we have two kids, everybody's healthy.
Yeah.
How come we're not happy? And
Mhm.
that really kind of started both of us on this journey. And what we realized, maybe it was the time when we started searching for support and advice and all that stuff is um, there was no podcasts for us, at least, that were really helping people kind of start from their mess to where they wanted to go. And
Mm.
that was tough for us. All the podcasts we got was like, here's how you're awesome, and here's how you're great, and here's what marriage is awesome. And nobody, and so we didn't really feel connected to a lot of these
Mhm.
people we were listening to. And so Kate and I, like we typically always do, we take things into our own hands. And we decided to kind of start the Evolve Marriage podcast and Evolve Nation and really help talk about our mess. Because we say it even now, like we have a really great marriage,
Yeah.
and it's still messy,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and I think that sometimes is not something, certainly now it's changed over the last few years, especially
Yeah.
since COVID, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think that was really the message that Kate and I wanted to get across is that you're always building, you're always evolving, right? You're
Mhm.
always going to face new challenges. And it's how you face those challenges together that actually make the journey so great. And
Mm.
so what we
Mhm.
typically do on the Evolve Marriage podcast, we're very tool oriented, we're very skill oriented. A lot of it's around psychology.
Mhm.
Uh, and we talk about our own marriage. I'm background and an anxious type, Kate's an avoidant type. We
Mhm.
talk about how that typically works, how we get to secure attachment.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, we've really just tried to give people tools in a way that's relatable and just also saying that, it's never really perfect. You're always building and growing and deepening your connection.
That's really neat. And I see that type 4 gift so out in front there. And I think that's really courageous for you guys to be championing that because I do know that when you're at the top of an org, even this one, people are always thinking and hoping that you're perfect and even projecting that onto you. And so when you continually share, this is a place of real, we're still growing, it's beautiful, but you also give the hope, the true hope of, but it sure is a lot different than it was back in that day when we first started. And look at us now. We didn't know if we could make it, and we did, and we are. And I think that as much as it's a day to day journey, it was nice for you guys to say, okay, it is messy. How can we move up with everybody else? Because that's just who we are, our, especially your type 8 part of you and her type 3 part of you. A lot of our listeners know that's really big energy couple pairing who can get a lot done. You guys help others now to get out of their messes and get into tangible, practical spaces that are healthier. So I love that. You're also speaking to the next question I wanted to ask, which was honeymoon period. Like we all have those, and then it changes, it shifts. We come into shadow a little bit. Tell us what we can do. I just had a couple I was working with this week say, like, we're just hitting our rut. We're at the 6 or 7 year mark. What do you help couples with when they get there and there's disillusionment and they're busy and they don't know what to do?
Yeah, yeah. And so I think one of the things that we have certainly started to do well in society and as people who are mentoring and talking to other couples is we really start to be honest about these seasons of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I think that could benefit all of us. Again, we talk a lot about the ideal and what's given to us in Disney movies. And I
Yeah.
mean, even from a young age, I have two young kids. And my daughter, especially, she's 8 now. And she is
Mm-hmm.
like a romantic.
Yeah.
She loves when princesses are strong and in love. And she loves it when my wife and I kiss. And she kind of gets between us. Oh, yeah, this is so great. Let's let all the love out.
Good.
And I think that's very beautiful. And I think, like most relationships typically start, they enter into the romantic love phase.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for me, like when I really try to help couples understand the evolution of long-term relationships,
Mm-hmm.
once you start to understand, hey, what phase and season you get into,
Mm-hmm.
um, it really starts to give yourself a bit of a break
Yeah.
and give yourself a bit of grace during these tough seasons
Mm-hmm.
and realize that you're going to get through it together and that there's always opportunity to create that deep connection that I think we're all idealizing in a sense, right? That we want. We want the deep
Yeah.
connection. We're both on our rockers on the porch, looking out as old people, holding hands, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
like the beautiful thing. And we can have that.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think what often happens is whenever we experience disconnection or conflict or when these tough seasons,
Mm-hmm.
our brain starts to tell us that that future is not possible, right? It like goes away and we need the
Mm-hmm.
urgent kind of thing right now. And so
Mm-hmm.
what the four frameworks, if I think about a framework, if you think about a quadrant, right, we can kind of talk about it that way. But there's these like four levels towards deep connection.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one typically starts what we say is like the lust level, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like a very young kind of attraction thing. Probably when you first met your partner, it was like they just stood out to you. And
Mm-hmm.
the lust part is really, you looking at others in a way that is like, I'm attracted. So you
Mm-hmm.
think I think about this now, again, talking about my kids, my son's going to be 11 and you can see it starting with him. Every, teenage girl that
Mm-hmm.
walks by him, he's like looking, right? And he's like, and it's like, oh, there it is. There's that very normal kind of
Yeah,
boyish
my
energy
son's
that's
doing that
coming
too.
up. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so we accept that that's a normal part of his evolution.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so typically that's where all this kind of attraction to another starts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then you move into the second phase, which is what we've championed, but we call romantic love, right? And that's like what people dream about. That's the honeymoon phase. And
Mm-hmm.
really what that is you move from the lust phase and you go into romantic love, which means now your object's desire is one person. And so you
Mhm.
start to imagine your life with that person. There's an attraction to that person. You want to get to know that person, right?
Mhm.
And this is when you start dating and you commit and you go exclusively and then you grow and you get married and all that stuff. And then you're in the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
So all that is romantic love. And it's beautiful. It's great.
Mhm.
One of the big challenges, and this is kind of, I hate to like take this away from your audience, but romantic love has to end because if we just continued to prioritize romantic love, we would not have grown as a species,
Mm.
right? Because
Mhm.
one of the biggest things that gets in the way of romantic love, you probably know this, Krista,
Mhm.
is kids,
Mhm.
right? I remember when
Mhm.
we had kids, romantic love was like off the table. It's like, what's going on? We're
Right.
never sleeping. We're annoyed. We're tired. We got
They're
kids,
always here.
exactly. All they're in bed with us. They're knocking at the door. So,
Yeah.
so you can imagine if we were a culture, biologically, who just said, no, romantic love is a priority, we probably wouldn't have had kids and we would have died off a long time ago.
Mhm.
So we need to move into the third phase, which is called what a lot of us know as attachment,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
this is now, okay, we've decided to build a life together. And in those moments, it's prioritizing mostly safety and comfort,
Mm.
right? So you
Mhm.
decide to get a home, you decide to maybe blend your finances together, you're getting good jobs, you're getting kids so that your genes can continue. You're
Mhm.
doing all these things that we do normally as humans
Mhm.
in order to move towards security and comfort for ourselves and the people we love.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful phase. It's
Mhm.
such a great phase. A big part of the problem is that people start to long for romantic love in that phase.
Mm.
They don't realize, like, okay, we're in this phase where we have to prioritize taking care of our kids. It's like, no, 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 no. I kind of like the old phase. That was so much better. It was fun. It was spontaneous. It was exciting.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we devalue the current phase that we're in, which is attachment love, which is
Mm.
so beautiful. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful to deeply know another. It's so beautiful to talk about loyalty
Yeah.
in a relationship,
It is.
right?
It
Yeah,
really
this idea
is.
of bonding, a person knowing you,
Mhm.
something that Kate and I often say in our marriage. I say this to a lot of my couples, even when they're like at a place where it's so tense and so tough. It's it makes sense that it's tough because nobody has ever known you as deep as this person now in front of you knows you.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so the way that I talk about it is in the attachment part is that you imagine like diving deep into an ocean and you've been vulnerable, right? So you get to kind of like go down into the deep end. After a while, you don't know what's deeper.
Mhm.
And so typically what we do in relationship, we're like, hey, I don't want to go deeper. I actually kind of like it over here. It's safe, it's comfortable. If we go
Mhm.
deeper, I don't know what's going to happen. And when you get to a place where nobody else has brought you to those depths, well,
Mhm.
now it becomes unknown, it becomes risky to go down there.
Mhm.
And this is where a lot of couples in that attachment phase start to prioritize comfort, right? Where it's
Mhm.
like, hey, everything's good. Let's just keep talking about the schedules. I'm not really feeling good, but when I bring it up, it kind of creates a bit of tension. And so the best way for me to stay comfortable is to stop bringing up what I want, is to stop creating tension.
Mm.
And people tend to get
Mhm.
lost in this attachment phase.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
what we like to invite couples to do is there's a fourth phase that you can step into. And the beauty of the fourth phase is it allows you then to shift into either attachment, romantic love, lust. And for us, the fourth phase is the rediscovery of your sense of self,
Mm.
right? And so that's a really big one. And if you think, you've been in a long-term relationship as well, there was probably a part in your relationship where you felt like you were serving a lot of everybody, you're taking care of everybody, your needs were put to the back, and to make
Mhm.
sure everybody was safe, everybody was taken care of around you. Your husband might have felt the same way. But what we really are attracted to in another person is who they are at their core. We call it like their fire, right?
Mm.
That's what's
Mhm.
attractive. And in the attachment phase, that fire tends to take a back seat in order to focus on safety and comfort. Is that making sense so
Yeah.
far?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so a big part of what we teach couples is, hey, how can you rediscover your sense of self
Mhm.
while continuing to be in a relationship?
Yeah.
Because now in this society, what we see a lot of is the best way for me to rediscover my sense of self is to be alone. Is like, hey, the best way I could just
Mhm.
go and be on my own all the time. I'll go do my own thing.
Mhm.
And that's like we call like easy mode. It's very easy to do that. It's very easy to
Right.
learn how to be yourself by yourself,
Right.
right? But what's
Yep.
incredibly challenging is, yeah, to be yourself in a long-term committed relationship.
Mm.
But the more you do that, the more you're going to face some tension, the more you're going to build resilience, And the more that fire is going to burn hot.
Mm,
And it burns hot in both ways because tension can rise, but also with tension rising, once you move through it, passion rises.
mm.
And so this is something Kate and I experience. We always say, like, we've been together 21 years. Our sex life is better than it's ever been,
Yay.
right? And
Yes.
so, and that only came from having healthy boundaries,
Hmm.
talking about things that were uncomfortable,
Yeah.
saying what we like and don't like,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And really deciding for myself, like, I remember me, I was probably like a typical man, right? I
Yeah.
used sex with my wife to regulate myself when I felt
Hmm.
stress. I need to have
Hmm.
sex, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now instead, I have decided that as a man, I want to have a sexual relationship that's fulfilling with another human who wants to be there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to have the type of connection with Kate that she doesn't want. If she's like, I'm not really feeling it right now, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
It's probably not good for us to do this,
Right.
right? And I
Yeah.
think so much of that, of you, asserting yourself, bringing more of yourself to the relationship, it can be scary at first,
Hmm.
right? Because the big question is, what if I bring more of myself and my partner doesn't like this part of me?
Yeah.
Maybe it's better just to stay in comfort. Maybe it's
Yeah.
better just to not rock the boat.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Mhm.
what you realize is by rocking the boat, by facing the storms, you become a better sailor. And so
That's
that's kind of how we break it down in a sense.
Yeah, that's such a helpful framework for people who are sitting in that space and saying, "What happened?" Because I think you and I know as couples helpers that that is one of the biggest first questions we get. And many of the listeners are probably right here with us going, "That is my question. Why don't I feel anything for them anymore?" And what you're saying is, it's going to be immersion. It's going to be hard work to take some courage to ask and to delve, but it's worth it because if you don't, you're going to miss each other and who each of you really are, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what we idealize two things like we talked about, right? It's we love the honeymoon phase
Hmm.
and we love the getting old and being together forever phase,
Yeah.
right? Those are like the two phases that society is like, yeah, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I talk about is like we champion people who've been married a really long time, right?
Hmm.
Whether they've been happy or not, that doesn't matter to
Right.
us.
Right.
What
Right.
matters
We're
is
just like,
that
you
they've been
did
married
this.
a
How
long
many do
time.
it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the metric, right?
Yeah.
But what's actually more exciting is how people are experiencing their relationship with the people they've
Mm.
been with a long time. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's always because I've had people who have been married, 4 years that I've coached, and I've had people who've been married 35 years that I've coached. And they
Mm-hmm.
have the same challenges, which is, they get to a place where they have decided to put their needs aside to keep
Mm-hmm.
the neutrality of the relationship. And
Mm-hmm.
that as humans, right, like we value safety.
Yeah.
There's a reason we've survived for so long. So unless we know we're going to get something, we very lack putting energy. And so we have to really decide for ourselves, hey, me being in this relationship, me having this beautiful love life, me having this great connection is worth it. And so I'm willing to get uncomfortable for it.
Mm.
And I think once you shift that idea, right, your relationship is totally worth it. Your partnership is totally worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Just learn to be a little bit uncomfortable. Doesn't mean you got to start rocking the boat like crazy,
Mm-hmm.
but what would it look like to add a little bit of tension, right? And then see
Mm-hmm.
what that goes and get some feedback. What would it look like to, make a request about one of your
Mm-hmm.
needs and invite your partner to respond to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's all these little tweaks that you can do, and it's not like let's go 0 to 100. It's let's take the first step and then assess what that was like. And so we can keep taking one step at a time.
That's so good because I know we want to build Rome in a day sometimes, but you're just saying like that 1% better little shift makes all the difference. And that really makes me want to check in with our male listeners and for even those females who have a husband they want to share a few tips with about this. It's so countercultural for men to be vulnerable, to be soft but strong. These feelings are, juxtaposed, but we know we need both of them because we know we can't just come at our partner like, here's who I am, take it or leave it. We need to be able to have some sort of negotiation. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what you've discovered working with men about how, with not being as socialized, they can come toward this 1% more vulnerable space of having these harder conversations.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I think it's such a great question. And I guess I'll start by this by saying that, it's a benefit to all of us for men to improve, right? And I say
Mm-hmm.
this all the time, like the women's movement. starting
Mm-hmm.
with the feminist movement and how that's
Mm-hmm.
changed life. And I'll go too deep into that, but like has
Yeah.
been so great for
Yeah.
women.
Mm-hmm.
I have a son and a daughter, and we kind of talk about this, Kate and I, a lot, but like
Yeah.
we're not really worried about our daughter succeeding. Like,
Mm,
and
right.
again, like I'm a man, I'm a white man, I get it.
Yeah.
But even Kate says that, like,
Yeah.
she's a go-getter, she's a hard charger. People
Yeah.
always support her when she wants
Yeah.
something.
It's becoming a lot safer for women.
Absolutely. And that is so awesome. Like, I don't want to take away from that.
Yeah.
And what I often say is that it's not a zero-sum game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we want women to continue improving. We want more for women, right? We want more of their gifts to be shared.
Yeah.
I think what's happened is that men have gotten this kind of whiplash effect from going to, from the patriarchy that's existed for 1,000 years to now being like, what's my place? What's my role? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yes.
And so that's a big part of it. And I think what's happening is that men are trying to figure out their role compared to their female partners.
Mm.
That was one thing that Kate and I we talked about a lot, right? Like she was like a feeling being. So I remember sometimes like she would have one feeling one moment and then she'd have another feeling the other moment. And I was like, what is going on? Like which one
Yeah.
of those do you feel? And I was very rational.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this belief that I had to be more like Kate.
Mm.
And that's the
Interesting.
first thing we tell a lot of men is you actually have to be more like yourself. The problem is you have like disconnected to these parts of yourself, right? You have learned that these parts of yourself are not good.
Mm.
And honestly, Krista, like if we're getting really deep into it,
Yeah.
I think that this whole masculine, feminine kind of ideal has done a disservice to men. Because
Mm.
in Western culture, a lot of the characteristics that we say are masculine
Yeah.
are the ones that are championed, right?
Yeah.
Organized, power, intensity, drive.
Yeah.
And so when a woman has drive,
Mm-hmm.
we think that's out of the norm. We're like, hey, that's not good. Like you're a woman, you should be more feminine.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I think that's awesome. Women
Yeah.
should be more, keep going,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of things, we have this idea of feminine, which is caring, open, feeling, emotional, right? All these kind of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have men out there who's like, I have to be less feminine, which is just a continuation of the same, which is how do I shut off these parts of myself, the caregiving
Yeah.
part, the feeling part, the vulnerable part,
Yeah.
and be more masculine?
Mm.
And while it's great for some movements, it's really done a disservice to our relationships. Because, and this is kind of what I tell a lot of people, like we connect through our emotions and through our suffering.
Mm.
So that's kind of a weird thing to say, but we're relational and emotional beings. And if you think about all the stories that we connect with, right, when we're with friends and we're connecting,
Yeah.
we connect most to the overcoming of hardship.
Yes.
That's all the
So
stories, right? The
true.
hero's journey, all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
when men get together with other men and they hide those parts of themselves, right? I used to get together with men all the time. We'd never talk about, hey, I'm really struggling with this. I'm a new dad. I feel insecure as a
Yeah.
dad,
Yeah.
right? Like I just don't know how to, or I feel disconnected to my infant son. I don't really know what to do with him,
Yeah.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
you can talk about that. It was like, I'm good. Everything's
Yeah.
fine. I'm crushing it. Everything's great.
Yeah.
And so what we've decided to create, and I think this is really healthy. So for your women listeners out there who have men who maybe feel a bit disconnected,
Yeah.
um, inviting them to be around other healthy men, I think is a must, right?
Mm-hmm.
I run a group called Evolve Men's Collective, and we invite men to come in and be around other healthy men so that they can learn with other men what being healthy, being vulnerable, being open, talking about your fears and insecurities, what that looks like
Yeah.
without losing this edge, right?
Mm.
Without feeling like you're just a puddle. Because there's moments when it's going to feel that way. You're going to feel like I'm the worst. I'm in shame and I'm feeling disconnected. And then you need other men to be there and say, hey, I felt the exact same way. That's a normal feeling, right? And
That
here's
makes
what you can do
sense.
about it.
Mm, yeah,
And so
versus
that
they have to be like a woman. They have to have the same exact route to getting there. It
exactly.
is such a good, refreshing reminder for us to hear that. But also, you're just saying you have a group, and wherever you're finding healthy men, men have to have that. And it's just such a given for women. Of course, we need that too. But we come about it differently. We have different levels of estrogen, even helping boost us. And you're just saying that it's going to be absolutely key for them to hear from other men. I am going to share my reel with you. And it has
Yeah.
not been super easy. And I do feel like the old way of doing it was everything's great, kind of whistling around. Do you have any alcohol or whatever, just like
Right.
trying to hide that it's really hard together. And are you seeing a really refreshing shift when you see men go deeper together?
Yeah, I think not only within the group of men, we found a shift, right? I feel more closely connected to a lot of these men. I think about a lot of what I get
Mm.
from men is like, I've never told another man that I love them. And
Mm.
now I'm regularly telling you, telling other men in my life that I'm saying this, right? And I think that permission that they give themselves to have an emotional response, a relational response to another man is incredibly powerful. But also what it does is in their closest relationships, right? Whether in their marriage or as dads,
Mhm.
uh, they kind of expand their capacity to connect. And so what I like to say is like, it's made me a better father, right? It's made me be able to connect with my daughter more, connect with my son more. We talk about hardships.
Mhm.
When my son's having a hard day, it's not like, hey, buck up, let's keep going, right? It's like, hey, I know what that's like. I've had hard days too. Here's
Mm.
typically what it's like for me. What's it like for you?
Mm.
Right? And so it becomes more of a relational connection. And what I realize over time is that has not only made our relationship healthier, but it's modeled a really great, for what I'd say, an ideal of what a man is for my son. I don't want
Mm.
him to bottle everything up. I want him to be able to understand his own emotional impact on others, his own emotions, and what's going on inside him. And so, yeah, we've seen so many benefits, not only within the group, but we've seen benefits in the way these men show up in relationship,
Mm.
and I think that's typically what women are looking for is, a man's capacity to hold space for that emotional state without losing themselves, right? So many of what I see in a lot of marriages is, and I used to be like this with Kate, my wife.
Mhm.
She'd come in, she'd have a hard day. She was like an emotional whirlwind, right? She'd, I had this and this it sucks and that sucks. And
Yeah.
oh God, oh, she was like in tears and then angry. And
Yeah.
I was just like frozen. I was like, this is so, I've never dealt with this before. And I
Yeah.
don't know how to deal with it.
Mhm.
And so my go-to, like most people, was to try to fix her and solve all her problems or just shut down and disconnect from her emotionally.
Mhm.
And so this is really what we're trying to teach men to do is like, hey, like emotions aren't threatening. You have emotions,
Mhm.
but and you want to be able to open up and talk about them, but not in a way that's just like flooding everybody around you like a machine
Yeah.
gun, right?
Right.
And so you want to be able to understand your own capacity and then be able to express yourself in a way that actually lands and is attuned to another.
Mm.
And I think that
Mhm.
not only helps men, but I think that helps the world in general.
Me too. I think that that's a healthily evolved marriage is when both partners know and can give each other the cue of I'm feeling flooded and asking, is this a good time? These kinds of questions. And I was going to ask, what do you think a man who, you said, saying I love you, being able to connect about emotions but not flood other people. Do you think that healthy non-sexual touch is part of that too? I see a lot of research on hugging and just wondering about that because I know so many guys are just like, you just get the hand pat. You don't get the hug unless it's sex. So, what have you learned about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're touching on such an important part. And I think, this idea of physical affection,
Mm-hmm.
I think about us as humans, right? The importance of that. I think
Mm-hmm.
about, I grew up in a household that there wasn't a lot of affection, right? My mom she was very religious. And so this idea
Mm-hmm.
of touching others was always sexualized. We sexualized touch. I think
Mm-hmm.
society sexualized
Yeah.
touch for a long time.
Yeah.
But now I see this idea of physical affection being like closeness and care for another.
Yeah.
So I do it with my kids, I do it with my wife, and I do it with other men in my life. I'm a hugger. And
Yeah.
so to like hug a man and just have him embrace each other in our arms, like to me, that's a perfectly normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, boosts oxytocin, makes us feel a little bit uncomfortable at first. There's some tension, but over time we kind of release and relax. And that's incredibly important. I think what
Mm-hmm.
has happened over time is that men have grown to believe that the only appropriate type of touch is sexual touch.
Yeah.
And this is where you get men just like longing for it so much. And,
Mm-hmm.
I say men and women here, but I think people in general, we have started to sexualize touch. So I remember there was time even in my marriage, I would come up, I would embrace Kate behind her. And in her mind, the first step was like, oh, he wants sex,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we really had to get away from that belief. Not only did I have to get away from that belief, but Kate
Yeah.
also had to get away from that belief,
Right.
right? To
Right.
say,
This is
when my husband
huge.
touches me, it's
Mm-hmm.
not because he wants to drive towards sexual connection, which sure, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, what I want is closeness.
Mm-hmm.
What I want is to feel good and to be embraced and to embrace you. And I think that men often don't give themselves permission to ask for those things
Mm-hmm.
because they're supposed to be strong. They're supposed to not need anything. They're supposed to be okay without that. And
Mm-hmm.
so we find all these creative ways to maneuver a system where we can get what we want without ever asking for it or needing it. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the jokes in our marriage, and we say this right on the podcast, is I love being the little spoon. It's one of my most favorite things. When I'm in bed and I'm facing one way, and Kate just comes up behind me and just
Yeah.
hugs me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the beginning, I had
Mm-hmm.
tension within me because I was like, I love this, but Eric, you should be the one
Yeah.
cuddling. You have bigger eyes. But no, I was like, no, this is perfectly okay and
Yeah.
acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a belief that I had to get over. Like, as a man, I need care too, right? As a man, I have needs, and they're not just sexual needs. And for a lot of men that are out there listening, and women too who want to help their partners or even want to have answer this question for themselves, is I always like to ask the question, like, what is it that sex does for me?
Mm. Yeah.
And we use sex in all kinds of ways to do things for us, right? For so many men, it's to take the edge off, or to deal with stress relief, or to validate that they have a place in their partner's lives.
Yeah.
But you really have to start to understand, what is it that sex does for you, and then how can you create a relationship where sex is not the only way that you can receive that,
Yeah.
right? And so if the only way that you believe you can get close with your partner is through sexual connection, of course you're going to be driving for that all the time.
Mm.
But there's so
Right.
many other creative ways that you can create closeness with your partner that have nothing to do with sex, that aren't even in the sexual realm.
I love that.
Yeah, and so I think this is really what we try to introduce to couples, is like, hey, let's get creative with ways that we can have our needs met that are sometimes thinking outside the box. Because
Mm.
as long as you stay in there, you're kind of stuck between, okay, it's either we do this exact thing to get my needs met, or my needs don't get met. And
Right.
I think we need to grow beyond that. If that makes sense.
It really makes sense. And I was actually thinking about it this morning in another context, that couples have to be able to relax a bit around the idea of the shoulds that can come,
Hmm.
like you said, from an unhealthy institutionalization of any nature, where we've just really purity cultured ourselves or boxed ourselves into something that just isn't healthy. And so it's so nice for me to hear you remind everybody, you're allowed to take a deep breath, explore. You're allowed to be the small spoon, even if you have eight tendencies. You're allowed to be loved and to love, and even if it feels awkward or uncomfortable at first. And that's just such a special invitation for men listening. And I hope they're all truly leaning in right here to know you are allowed to come to love in other ways besides just sex. And especially don't force anyone to do that, but also just invite yourself. You'll both be healed. And then I think that my last big question is just about women who are saying, okay, I hear you. I also want this. I've always wanted this. How can I, aside from forcing my husband out the door to meet with other men, how can I invite him into healthy vulnerability with me? How can I create safety that he will go deeper with me?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And so if we get a little bit tactical, there's a few things that we can do.
Sure.
Um, I think that the core belief that is important to take on is that really great long-term relationships have tension. And so this is
Mm.
kind of what I say, right? If you are unwilling or afraid to rock the boat, if you're afraid to make your partner uncomfortable,
Yeah.
and that's your priority, you don't want to make them uncomfortable, you don't want to make you uncomfortable, it
Hmm.
makes sense that there's going to be some neutrality, right? And so in order for your relationship to grow and become something that's different than what it currently is, there needs to be some tension, right? Almost like a flower kind of coming out of its bud, right? A lot of
Hmm.
energy there that's happening at once.
Hmm.
So I think that's a belief that needs to be taken on, is that one person often needs to introduce something to be the catalyst for change in a relationship. And
Hmm.
so for a lot of us, we wait for the right time. We're like, oh, let's see if they're into it. I might like drop hints on it. And so what I often tell people is, you need to step into that and be the catalyst for adding this to your ecosystem. So if you think about a relational
Love that.
ecosystem that two people are in, you
Hmm.
want to introduce something new to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
One of the best ways to do that is, first of all, to model healthy
Mm-hmm.
behavior. It's probably the easiest way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I like to say is like, let's say you think about health and you're like, you just want to start eating healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if your partner, your husband's always eating cookies all the time and you're like, well, I want to eat healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you show up to meal and he's like, hey, you want a cookie? And you're like, no, thanks. I don't want to eat cookies right now. And you just do that over and over and over. He might start saying, hey, that's weird. You stopped eating cookies. We used to eat cookies together all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, yeah, I'm realizing I want to be healthier. And I'm realizing that cookies weren't helping me with that. So I've decided not to eat cookies.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's going to be some tension there,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Cookies were so great. Cookies were our thing. What are you doing? Now it's my, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And
Right.
you have to accept that your partner is going to have an experience of your changes, right? So
Mm-hmm.
now you're going to have internal tension, feel so guilty. Maybe I should just give in to this. Oh, why are they so mad? Like all that kind of stuff. And on
Mm-hmm.
the outside, there's going to be tension for your partner.
Yeah.
So you have to remember your why. Like, why is it that this is worth doing,
Yes.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever your partner challenges your behavior, you want to remind not only them, but you want to remind yourself why this is important to you.
Yeah.
That is going to keep you going, right, through
Yeah.
the challenge. Over
Mm-hmm.
time, maybe your husband just continues to eat cookies on his own. That's his thing. If that's what he wants, totally fine. That's what
Yeah.
being differentiated is all about. We're two different humans,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that your partner might realize, hey, maybe I'll start eating cookies a bit less, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, this is the idea of modeling. Not don't do this with expectations. Don't do this with like, well, if I, get a gym membership, my husband will. No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Just do you to the best of your abilities. And
Mm-hmm.
because you're in the same ecosystem, if one person changes, the ecosystem will shift.
Mm.
So that's the first kind of big thing, just modeling behavior. And
Love that.
again, I recognize this
Mm-hmm.
is hard. So having people in your life that support you, having friends, having groups, having coaches, having family members who say, hey, you're doing the right thing, right? Less
Mm-hmm.
cookies is a good idea, right? And if
Mm-hmm.
you just keep having people like that in your life, it's going to be much easier for you to keep doing the hard thing. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
second thing that I often recommend
Mm-hmm.
is get really good with requests. So one of the things that happens in relationships is we typically try to create change by criticizing our partner, right? Something I used to do when I wanted to feel connected with Kate.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't go and make a request. What I
Mm-hmm.
typically did was just complain about our current reality,
Yeah.
right? Ah, we're never connected anymore. This sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'd like wait to see if she'd do anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
She might say, yeah, she's like, then she might come up with an excuse, get on the fence. Oh, I'm working all the time, right?
Yeah.
And again, that was like a really safe bid, right? A complaint is a
Mm-hmm.
really safe bid for
Yep.
asking for what you want. It's not vulnerable. You get to just throw out a complaint. If your partner
Yep.
doesn't respond, cool, I don't have to ask.
Right.
And so I recommend that people learn how to make healthy requests. So
Mm.
a really great tool for this is what I call a reveal and request.
Mm.
And so first, you want to reveal a little bit about your own internal story. This is going to be the vulnerability part, right? So
Mm-hmm.
again, 1 to 2 sentences, keep it short. Might sound something like, hey, I've realized that we're in a really busy season of life. And while we're crushing it in so many ways, I'm realizing that there's a longing to connect with you, right? So that's a reveal. That's like, I'm going
Mm.
below the vulnerability. I'm not just saying we don't hang out. I'm not just saying
Yeah.
we're too busy. I'm
Mm-hmm.
revealing parts of myself.
Mm-hmm.
Using I statements is good, and talking about some of your feelings is good. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
the reveal. Then
Mm-hmm.
you go to the request. And the request is specifically an ask that you make to your partner that
Mm-hmm.
benefits you. It might benefit both of you, but that your partner can answer one of three things. They can say yes or some form of yes. They can say no or some form of no, or they can
Mm.
give you an alternative,
Yeah.
right? So this is what it would look like in reality. So I would say that part. I long to connect with them.
Yeah.
I'm
Mm.
wondering if you have time on Friday after the kids go to bed, so
Yeah.
we can just be together on the couch, watching our favorite show, maybe doing some foot and back rubs
Mm-hmm.
for 2 hours before we go to bed.
Mm.
Is that something you're willing to do,
Yeah.
right? And now your
Mm.
partner gets to respond. They get to say, "Oh, that sounds so great. Yeah, I'm up for it. Awesome. That's a turn towards, right?" They
Yeah.
could say, "No, I don't want to do that. I'd rather go play tennis with the boys." All right. You know, they say no. Yet, even though they said no, it's good because you asked for what you wanted and they were responding in a way that made sense to them.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing with no is we have trouble accepting a no and then soothing ourselves,
Mm.
right? We make the no mean something about us.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a
Yeah.
little bit of mindfulness work there. Or they can
Wow.
give you an
Yeah.
alternative, right? Which is, hey, that sounds really great. I can't on Friday because I have tennis with the guys. What's your Saturday like?
Mm.
And then
Hmm.
you might say, well, actually, Saturday is open. Awesome. It's a date. Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. in front of the TV, giving each other massages,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
again, none of that happens without a clear request.
Hmm.
And so what I often tell partners is you want to help your partner provide for you because the reality is all of us as humans, we love being of service to others.
Hmm.
That's just innate. Like we love helping others.
Yeah.
So if you reveal what's going on for you and then make a clean request that your partner can respond to, the reality is as long as it's like a layup for them, most likely they're going to want to do it.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so just make sure it's appropriate to your current reality and then accept whatever they respond to,
Yeah.
right?
I like that.
So that's typically where we invite people to do. Like if you want to introduce behavior change in your relationship, understand that it's an ecosystem. Modeling behavior is going to change the ecosystem. And then start making requests. For some people, if requests is a little too much, you can do an invitation, right? Which is
Hmm.
like, hey, I'm going to watch TV on Friday night. I'd love to be sitting with you. If that's something you want. Would you be willing to join me? If they say no, that's okay. You do it anyways,
Yeah.
right? But it's like an invitation to join, as opposed to it's an invitation for them to do something for you that you would benefit from.
Yes. I love that. And I love that it's low hanging fruit, specific and nuanced, which we love here at Enneagram and Marriage, that instead of just stating, which I've heard on some marriage teaching podcasts, just say it. This is what I would love. It's adding to this is how we could meet the need together. And I think we're going in that way from the Cinderella fantasy of I just want the white horse and I want you to know it and I want you to read my mind to this is what I would really like. And this is how I think that might happen. Like we said, Saturday night at this time, this would be good. Would this time work for you? Does this interest you? And I think that as you're mentioning, that modeling being the earlier step can be part of it, but to do the direct ask is very healthy as long as you give somebody that time to answer, to choose versus we have to do this. I need this. You have to give it to me. And you talked about the important work in marriage, which we know is the stage of differentiation. So sometimes there will be a no, right? We'll discover that our spouse doesn't want to, as Wes has been asking me for a long time to go indoor skydiving. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, do that with our
Right.
son. And he's like getting it now. And he's like, okay, like you like hiking and you like doing those kinds of wild adventures or going skiing, but you don't like indoor skydiving. And like, that's been something that he's had to learn differentiation on, but he's always kind about it. But he will ask every now and again to see if my thoughts are changed. And I think that's also okay and on the table because once in a while, we know that these can be fallacies as well. And you don't want to like intentionally do fallacies on your spouse by just continuing repetition fallacy. But, occasionally, like we said on your podcast, when we talked about can people change, we do change. And all of a sudden, they do want to try this. So I
Mhm.
think that when we have confidence and love paired, we could continue a gentle asking occasionally. But I love how you also are reminding us use your words and your language too to really spell out what you want if this is you and your partner's the one pursuing, persisting, and asking things that you don't want, because that's a healthy marriage. And then you can find out, oh, like I was just talking to somebody yesterday as another example that's even more relevant to our listeners here is their spouse wants to have deep conversations, but they're not leaning into that one-to-one intimate instinct the same way they are. That's an Enneagram term is these three instincts, and we
Mhm.
call it the one-to-one or the sexual instinct. And sometimes we have to remember, oh, my partner doesn't want to do that, but my friend does. And they will go deep dive on this podcast or convo or intellectual conversation in a way that my spouse will do it differently. And so, even just respecting who your spouse is, I feel like is what you're saying within this. Am I right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And I think, you know, also you talked about something that's really important is we put a lot of pressure on our partners to be our everything.
Mm,
And,
yeah.
I think there's that old term, like it takes a village to raise a child. One of the things that Kate and I say is like it takes a village to keep a great relationship going.
Mm,
And so Kate has a group of friends, I have a group of friends, we have a couple friends, we have
yeah.
mentored, like, and so we're
Yes.
constantly outsourcing our needs to others if our partner's not available to us,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing too is I think it's seeking to understand, and we call this like the vulnerability threshold, but to really seek to understand what's going on below the surface. Like I'm sure you've done with your husband Wes, but It's like, okay, so you want to do the skydiving thing. Like, tell me
Yeah.
more about what that experience is for you.
Yeah.
Like, why it's so important to you,
I like
right?
this.
And then you kind of
Yeah.
end up in this thing of like, I don't know, I have this fantasy of us like facing adventures side by side and like
Yeah.
punching through life and doing hard stuff.
Yeah.
And so that moment when we accomplish something that's, scary and daunting,
Yeah.
that's a feeling that I want you at my side by. And so now
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, opening it up
I
and saying,
know. It's so
oh, like we don't just
sweet.
have to go skydiving. Like let's do this other thing and this other thing and this other
Yeah.
thing, right? And
Right.
so I
And
think
even
that's
what
part
do
of it.
I not like about it? Like, why is that one the thing I don't want to do? And if you know I'm a type seven and in this
It's
enclosed bubble, like
yeah, that's
it's just
okay. Yeah,
not
yeah.
my thing.
Exactly.
Um,
That's totally okay.
so
Right?
it's really, yeah, but it's neat for you to say, let's get at the underbelly. Let's do what John Gottman calls the dreams within the conflict. And that one,
Hmm.
thankfully, was a light example. But when it's a really deep one, like we do need to really delve in. Like, what is behind the ask here? Why do you want to try this sexual position? Why do you want to go here? Why is it important for you to spend Christmas in this space? So I'm so glad you're giving us some language, and I think it's clear enough that we now have this place where we can go to each other with more safety from not only the modeling, like we said, but coming in with the ask and coming out with some differentiation, but also some curiosity, some love, but making it clear, right?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And I think a lot of times we get lost in ambiguity. Kate and I, we joke
Mhm.
all the time, but and I'm sure we've all done this as humans. But Kate used to laugh like her bid to spend time with me, her request was, what are you doing tonight? And that was like her request that she'd want to
Yeah.
spend time with me.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that that was a request. So she'd say, "What are you doing tonight?" I'd say, "Oh, I'm finishing up some work." And then she'd be like, "Okay," and she would just like leave, right? And then she would complain after a while. She'd be like, "We never spend time together. I ask you to spend time all the time."
Yeah.
And then we started like break it down, and we realized like for Kate, it was incredibly vulnerable for her to ask for me to do something that would benefit her, that would take me away from these other things that she thought were important, right?
Yeah.
And so what we realized by opening up, by going to, like you said, the underbelly was, hey, actually, Kate, sometimes I need you to help me get away from work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like in work mode all the time. It's
Yeah.
so easy for me to go there. It's so easy.
Yeah.
So sometimes I actually need you to remind me, hey, let's
Hmm.
spend some time together. And the best way to do that is to make a clear request,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so really starting to understand like, hey, this is actually helpful to my partner. I see so many men with their wives who are like, they're doing a lot and so much pressure is put on women to be everything these days, to be mothers and career women and business, all that
Yes.
stuff. And so a lot of the men that I connect to is like, hey, I'd love to connect with her, but she's way too stressed out and I don't want to add more stress to her plate.
Yeah.
And one of the beliefs that we flip is like, well, what if you bringing connection to her life reduces her stress? Like,
Yeah.
what if you're the solution? But for us as men, like we think like, oh, we're the problem. We're going to get in the way. Like me connecting with her is going to cause stress. So we don't do it.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking like, I actually have an opportunity to help my partner connect to life.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
so I think it's a little quick flip here is that like we can be a gift to our partners if we're willing to have the courage to step into that
Yeah.
and face a little bit of that internal tension.
Thank you for saying that because it reminds me when somebody has that block, like, well, my spouse keeps asking me to spend time, which I did have a couple say that this week, and I have to keep saying no. I think that we really run the risk of putting the work or the school ahead of the partnership instead of letting the partner say, we do actually need some time together. And whenever we can find it, fine, let's be differentiated and figure out when's best for you versus me. But when we're getting less than 6 to 10 hours a week together to just even relax, it's like we're not going to have a date. We're not going to have a time to watch TV and cuddle. We're not going to have conversations, certainly not healthy conflict time, sexual intimacy. So I love that you're also within this frame reminding people it's okay to let your spouse influence you for good. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so good. You have been such a gift to our audience with practical, nuanced tips today.
Thanks.
Eric, tell us where everyone can find you and also these wonderful men's groups.
Yeah, so if you just go to evolvemarriage.com, all our information's there. Kate and I, we have the Evolve Marriage podcast. We're on YouTube. And so you can typically find us on there. But yeah, if you just go to evolvemarriage.com, check us out, check out what we do. If it lands for you, awesome. I'd love to have a conversation with you. If not, that's totally okay too. And I just want to appreciate you as well, Krista. I said it earlier, but um, you, introducing, I want to say introducing, but actually reintroducing, because Kate about 5 years ago kind of got into the Enneagram world and it kind of went away. But reintroducing this to our marriage has been such a
Oh,
gift as well. So thank you for coming into my life and
mm.
really introducing this beautiful tool that allowed me and my wife to understand each other more.
Oh, I am so glad. The feeling is mutual. You guys are such a gift to us. It is awesome, guys. Listeners, I hope you're feeling the feels with us, like to be with other marriage helpers out there. We also need the help and tools. So thank you for saying that. And everything of Eric's and Kate's is in the show notes, guys. Make sure you check them out. Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you again for listening with us. It was so wonderful to have you. I love knowing we're doing this journey together, not perfectly, but with love, grace, and hopefully some fun too. If you loved today's episode, make sure you leave us a 5-star review at Apple Podcast or Spotify so others can find it too. Visit our show notes so you can get all the links from today's show, as well as enneagramandmarriage.com, the Instagram, the Facebook, and all over the place. Make sure you spread the word. Love living intentionally with you. Bye-bye.